Turning now to another potential summer hazard. Many children will beat the heat by hitting the pool, but for some kids, that innocent fun can turn fatal. According to the CDC, African American kids drown at a rate of almost 3 times that of white and Latino children. Now, one group is hoping to change that.
No sandals on your head. That's a rule.
It's a Tuesday afternoon at the Roxbury YMCA. Like many kids their age, these students from nearby Trotter Elementary are getting ready for some after-school fun. And for them, that means swimming. But there's a current this class is swimming against.
African American and Latino children drown at a much higher percentage.
In fact, over a quarter of Massachusetts children who drown are black, prompting the YMCA of Greater Boston to launch the Urban Swim program, a joint effort with elementary schools, says Roxbury Y Interim Director Catherine Saunders.
We really wanted to partner with the schools so that the kids that we got in the program not only swam on their own, which would benefit their family, but also could come over as a cohort. So they come over as a group, they learn how to swim as a group, and then hopefully they have more fun as a group.
Swimming is a rare luxury in many low-income neighborhoods. At Trotter Elementary, for example, over 80% of its students are considered low income, and fewer than half first through third graders know how to swim. Lifeguard Qualia Johnson says cost is an issue.
Swimming lessons are that you have to pay. They're mostly into the free programs that are provided by the schools, like basketball and track and football and stuff like that.
When Johnson was a child, she learned how to swim at the Roxbury Y herself. And today, she's a rarity among local lifeguards. Out of the more than 300 lifeguards employed by the Y of Greater Boston, only 30 are African American.
The counselors and my mentors that I had that were my mentors, I'm teaching their children now, so it's like a chain.
And that chain now includes Johnson's mother, who also wants to learn how to swim. All right, and with me now are Kevin Washington, CEO and President of the YMCA of Greater Boston, and Jarrett Barrios, CEO of the Eastern Massachusetts Red Cross. Do both of you know how to swim?
Yes.
Yes. Who taught you?
I learned at the YMCA, the Christian Street YMCA, when I was 9 years old.
And did your parents swim?
No.
Yeah. How about you, Jarrett?
My dad taught me. My dad was a swimmer and taught me.
You know, I want to start with that because it's interesting that that your parents had you learn. But I always said to friends of mine who didn't swim, and if their kid was in trouble in the water, you couldn't do anything to help them. So it's this cycle. I mean, the parents need to learn as well.
They do, but I think one of the things that, particularly for many of the African American families, access to pools was a very limited nature. When you consider when my parents grew up, they were raised in the South and came up to the North at a later age, so access to pools was very difficult. And then there was also some racial barriers around, just around prejudices that didn't allow black folks to get into pools at some of those times. So they wanted me to learn. I got involved with the water at an early age and had the opportunity to do so. Mm-hmm. And it's just like when you compare to going to school, the first person goes to college and the next generation does. And so all of my kids know how to swim, my brother's kids know how to swim, so I think that's the way it went in our family as well.
Was there a premium put on it when you were growing up?
I grew up, my dad would go crabbing, we'd go out with him, to be in the water we need to learn how to swim. And you see, I think, disparities between Latinos and African Americans in the statistic. About a third of African Americans self-report as knowing how to swim or as having taken lessons to swim. Latinos are higher at about 49%. Whites are at 56% in a recent Red Cross poll. So you really do see some disparities.
Was that because Latinos had more access to water? I mean, honestly.
I mean, perhaps it's the reverse, that African Americans don't maybe have that access, concentrated in urban areas. Pools. The Latinos and African Americans in those neighborhoods, same neighborhoods. But where there are a lot of Latinos, like in Puerto Rico, where you have beaches and you have other stuff, it's perhaps different. I think the big issue, though, is, from my perspective, that you have a lot of parents who may or may not know how to swim, who will take kids swimming in places where, one, the kids haven't taken lessons, and two, there are no lifeguards. And that is where you get kids, that's the recipe for drowning. Right, 63% of people in our poll this week released.
It's a Red Cross poll.
A Red Cross poll, national. Self-report saying we're going to go to the beach this summer in a place where there are no lifeguards.
Or they get into a canoe without a life jacket.
Whatever, and like I think only 7% of those polled know the proper steps of what to do if somebody looks like they might be drowning, calling for help and so forth. So it's there's a lot of water safety tips, lessons to go around.
So,
in this
Kevin,
country.
do you get into that too with the kids?
Absolutely, because the goal is to make people safe around water. And so you ensure that they recognize how to act, what they need to do, how they need to take themselves. Really important around this water issue, because I've seen kids, particularly kids in that 10 to 12 age, when they're with their friends, particularly in Connecticut, where I worked previously coming to Massachusetts, there's a lot of open water activity.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ponds and things of that nature. And so kids think, I can jump in and do this. They don't realize the danger they're putting themselves in when they jump in like that. So water safety is important. We want to make sure they understand that you have to make sure that you understand how to swim when you get in this environment. And secondly, we want to make sure kids understand that you don't play around water. Even in the pools, no running, you walk, when the whistle blows, you get out of the pool. So those kinds of things are part of what we teach as part of our water safety program.
There's a lot of fear, just from what my research said, of water. Is it fear of drowning, or does it go beyond that? Fear of getting wet? Seriously.
I think it's fear, and I think I can speak from the ethnical perspective. They just haven't had the understanding and access to it, so they have these fears about water. I've seen some kids jump in the water and they say, they may swallow some water and they say, I'm drowning.
Yeah.
So you try to say, no, that's not quite what's going on. So I think the fear and unknown is really important aspect that we have to continue to work on.
Just in terms of the teaching of this whole thing, is it expensive? Cost is definitely a factor. Do they?
It is a factor in our situation, but we wanted to make sure that the young folks in those communities have access to them. We have pools at all over. The Y taught the world how to swim in many instances. The Red Cross, but the Y taught the world how to swim. And so this is an opportunity for us to use that skill to indulge in some young folks in those communities like Roxbury and Dorchester, where we're working. And the goal is to get them at an early age. We targeted 1st through 3rd grade because we really believe that if we get them at that age, then they'll be able to master that skill for life. And also, they will teach others. And then they will also go back to school and talk about the fun that they're having to engage other kids in the process.
So water safety is absolutely critical. And Red Cross, we in Massachusetts, we probably teach about 15,000 kids a year to swim. We train about 2,700 to be lifeguards. So once you've kind of gone through the learning to swim program, wonderful job opportunities, although self-reported. There's a lot of racial disparities in terms of who does and doesn't take those kind of jobs or go through that sort of certification so they can be lifeguards for the MDC or the DCR, those sorts of things. But where my own personal belief is that it is at least as important to talk about for parents to think about safe places for kids to swim as making sure they have been trained to swim.
This is a good question for you then. Are there more pool deaths or open water deaths?
I actually don't know the answer.
Seems like
to
pool.
That number. But lifeguards are...
Or a kid gets out and sneaks into the neighbor's pool and,
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially those residential pools could be an issue for us because a lot of them are unguarded, and sometimes kids can sneak into them. I think the other issue that we think is a health issue, and so one of the things that we're saying is that here you can address this just as a public health issue. If you have 3 times as many African American kids and kids of color drowning, it's a health issue. It's a public health issue. So our response to this is to engage more people to understand how to swim to prevent that. So
and make the courses affordable, make them accessible, i.e., in the neighborhoods where the kids live. And that's the larger policy question where we need cities and the Commonwealth to think about how those resources are allocated.
I was thinking about this playing. All kids horse around in the water. That's by nature what they do, whether it's a natural ocean, surfing, playing in the waves or in the pool. And so that horrible incident that happened in Fall River, I think it was last summer, where somebody drowned. I don't think it was a child. Doesn't really matter. But this idea of not reporting or keeping track of somebody else, do you have them do that?
We do buddy system. Yes, we do buddy system. And in many instances, particularly in our summer camp programs where we have several kids, they'll wear red, yellow, and green. Red means that you can only go a certain place in the pool. Yellow means you're okay to go a certain place. And green means you can go anywhere because that dictates the skill set that they've mastered. And we test them the first day of camp. And we put those colors on them so we know exactly what level of aquatics they're able to achieve.
And then they're trying to get to the next level.
Exactly.
Does Red Cross do that too?
We don't do that particular thing, but the sort of the safety protocol is you want lifeguard and you want buddy system. So that's the recommendation. Kids get it. It's not just enough to do buddies. You want to make sure that you've got lifeguards, that it's a supervised environment.
Now, there's some question about whether this program can go all year long or not. Is it a cost factor?
it is a cost factor. Stop and Shop Foundation has supported this. We will continue to find a way to continue to do the program because, one, the response has been fantastic, and there's a lot more kids we want to make sure master this skill set.
And then get to their parents.
That's right.
Kevin Washington, Jarrett Barrios, thanks a lot.